Story 1. I know we should have stopped my sister from drinking and driving a long time ago. But she had us all mentally beaten down, making us walk on eggshells around her. She even made us feel powerless at times because she used her children as emotional blackmail until her ex took them. It's not really an excuse, but I've heard all the comments about it before and admitted that I was a coward in handling it. And no, I can't report her now because I have no idea where she currently lives or if she even owns a vehicle. For now, at least, I have cut off contact with her, and she blames me for not choosing her over the rest of the family. About 8 years ago, my sister was charged with driving under the influence. Just a couple of months before that, she asked me to give her an honest opinion about her driving. So, I did. I told her she was an overconfident driver because she continued drinking and driving, and she refused to get new tires for her car. The ones she had were completely worn out. She brushed me off and said, "Whatever, I have the skills." A couple of months later, she got heavily intoxicated and attempted to drive home. She was driving recklessly when one of her worn-out tires blew out, causing her to lose control and crash her car into a large bush-like tree. The impact completely destroyed the vehicle. That night, I was home babysitting my sister's kids after they had fallen asleep. Suddenly, I got a call after midnight. It was my sister crying. She kept telling me she needed my help, but refused to say why. She wouldn't even tell me where she was. She just kept repeating that I needed to come get her. Then she started crying even harder, saying steam was coming out of her car. After that, she became completely incoherent, but was still unwilling to tell me what had happened. I told her it wasn't fair to ask for my help without explaining the situation. That's when she finally admitted that she had crashed. Then she started panicking because the police were arriving, and I could hear her saying the usual, "No, officer," lines. Before the call ended, I managed to get a rough idea of her location and immediately jumped in my car to find her. By the time I got there, the police were already arresting her. They gave her a breathalyzer test, and I believe she blew something around 0.28. The officers were shocked that she was even standing, let alone acting so composed. She pleaded with me to get our parents because she didn't want her car impounded. I told her I would drive back and get them as quickly as I could while obeying the speed limits. One of the officers looked at me and said, "Good man." I rushed home and had to wake my parents up, explaining what had happened through their bedroom door. My stepfather got dressed, and we went to retrieve my sister's car, only to find it was completely undrivable. The radiator was destroyed, 3 out of 4 tires were flat, and the body was severely damaged. We had no choice but to wait 3 long hours for roadside assistance to tow it. 3 hours of misery with hazard lights flashing in our eyes and the constant clicking noise of the turn signals. That totaled car sat in our yard for a year before my sister finally decided to junk it. She kept insisting she wanted it repaired, but it was beyond saving. At least I managed to salvage the battery and put it in an old 1964 Volkswagen Beetle I used to own. My sister was soon taken to court, had her driver's license suspended, and was required to abstain from alcohol until she completed her driving under the influence classes. As a result, I had to drive her everywhere for months. I had to take her to work, to her required classes, and to any other place she needed to go. On multiple occasions, I lost my patience with her constant complaints about my driving. She hated that I drove safely because she wanted to get everywhere as fast as possible. There were 2 separate incidents where she actually tried to argue with me about the speed limit in a school zone. The speed limit was 20 miles per hour when the zone was active and 40 miles per hour when inactive. I slowed down to 40, and she started telling me to speed up to 45, insisting that was the actual limit. We argued, and I had to physically point to the 40 miles per hour sign for her to finally stop talking about it, though she did so while pouting. This exact argument happened twice. Seriously, who debates the speed limit of a school zone? Once my sister got her license back, she vowed she would never drink and drive again. That promise lasted about a year before she broke it. At first, she was sneaky about it, so we didn't notice right away. But eventually, it became painfully obvious, especially after the Christmas incident. In 2023, our stepfather was also charged with driving under the influence, though his situation was entirely different. He was merely moving his car across a casino parking lot when he was caught. My sister wasted no time mocking him for it, despite the fact that her own offense was far worse, considering she had completely totaled her car years before. She was overly confident in her assumptions about the situation and became irritated when she realized she was wrong. She even seemed somewhat excited when talking about our stepfather's misfortune, smugly saying, "I bet he's blaming what happened on the police and everyone else." I immediately corrected her, telling her, "No, he is taking full responsibility for it." She twitched slightly at that and then said, "Yeah, well, I bet he's really angry about it." Again, I corrected her, saying, "No, he's actually very quiet and remorseful." That frustrated her even more, so she tried again, saying, "Well, I bet he's getting heavily intoxicated right now." I shook my head and told her he had barely touched alcohol since the incident. After being proven wrong 3 times in a row, she scrunched up her face in frustration and snapped, "You know what? Don't talk to me," before slamming the door shut. I was more than ready to remind her of her own reckless actions if she brought it up again. Sure enough, she did. A few days later, she tried bringing up our stepfather's mistake once more. This time, I immediately reminded her of her own much worse offense. That shut her down completely. She bitterly refused to talk about it again, at least not to my face. However, I later learned that she was talking behind our backs, twisting the story however she pleased to suit her narrative. Not that it really matters anymore. We eventually had to evict her, and I've been making a strong effort to keep my distance from her. Even so, she still managed to bother me a few times. But as of now, I have no contact with her, and that's exactly how I intend to keep it. Story 2. I have a long background in customer service, over a decade now in various roles, and one thing remains the same no matter where I go. No matter where you work or what types of customers/clients/patients you see, there will always be that one person looking to make your life harder. For this story, I'll call that person Bob. My job involved collecting a lot of potentially sensitive information on a variety of people, and the rules for how to do so are strict. As such, the team is divided into 2 groups, one of which, my group, has much more in-depth calls and generally falls to people with seniority in the organization. We all worked from a variety of locations and generally only kept in touch online. So, one day I log on and begin to make my calls and begin preparing my records when a message pops up on the team chat. One of the people we need to get in touch with needs to be reassigned to a different worker. Why? Because a coworker of mine had called to conduct the interview and was promptly chewed out by Bob, who then hung up on her. The reason? The coworker had an accent and Bob would only talk to a real American. Yeah, he actually said that. I was appropriately sympathetic and outraged at Bob, hurting her, of course. But then I got a private message from my supervisor. Guess who needed to take Bob's file and call him? Me. Whatever. Better me than her, I guess. So I called up Bob, fully expecting some kind of issue. Yep. Bob wouldn't give the info, but now he was just being rude about it instead of abusive. So I suppose he was never going to go through the interview. He had just wanted to get out of it and jumped on my coworker's accent as a way to refuse the first time. He'd hurt her just because he could, and now the call wouldn't be completed anyway, even though he couldn't find anything specific about me to object to. Fine. The customer is always right. If he didn't want the call, of course I understood. In fact, as long as he could verify his job and street name. Common things we ask to confirm we have the right person on the other line before giving any classified information. I'd personally make sure no one from my team ever bothered him again. And I got it. Thank you so much, sir. I'll close this down immediately. Have a great rest of your day. Here's the fun part. I don't want to go too far into my job details, but have you ever seen those shows where some random dude walks in, asks if the main character is, insert name here, and then says, "You've been served," and hands over a summons? The job does have a legal aspect, And I became that random dude the second he refused the call after we catered to his request for a new caller. And he just confirmed that I had gotten that refusal from just the jerk I was looking for. No one from my team needed to make another call to Dear Bob. But that was because the record was being sent to a higher government office so they could take more direct measures. These measures vary from person to person, but it's not unusual for law enforcement to get involved when a person gets their record elevated. Bob ended up having someone different to talk to. Maybe some face-to-face conversation will make him feel better. As for me, I don't even remember Bob's real name, and I hope my coworker doesn't either. All in a day's work. Additions. Yes, they know they will be getting the call before we call and why. We explain who we are, what we are calling in relation to. We are willing to prove our identity and even call back later if they want to double-check the verification info we provide. No, the calls are not random, and we take any issues they may have in communicating with us into account. A large number of people use the call to get information from us as well, which is both allowed and encouraged. Story 3. Some backstory. I work in a rather big print shop in a student town. Usually, before summer break, we are busy making books with a thesis. As anyone who ever wrote a thesis or even a paper for a course knows, this takes time, effort, and turn it in on a particular deadline. We usually know that a deadline is near when many theses are needed. This story happened about 2 years ago. It was Wednesday. We had a busy day with other customers, and there were also 3 or 4 theses that were picked up or needed to be printed. I just gave a very happy young lady her books when the entitled mom entered the store. I said good luck to the young lady and greeted the entitled mother. Entitled mother, my son needs his thesis until Friday. Me, this is daily business as summer break starts in 2 weeks. Entitled mother, okay, so his thesis should be about this and that title. Yeah, the topic doesn't matter. We just need the finished thesis as PDF and we print and bind it for you. What finished PDF? Your son did the thesis on the computer. We need the finished version as PDF. We often have parents asking things for their kids, and sometimes they have zero knowledge about computers. Oh, you should write and print the thesis. My son really doesn't have time for that kind of nonsense. We don't offer this kind of service. No, you offer that. The young lady left with what looked like what I needed. Yeah, because she wrote it and brought the finished file for printing. We only print finished files. I mean, I don't even know anything about this and that title. And how on earth my sweet little boy should then get his bachelor degree? When he doesn't turn in anything, he will be kicked out. So, this is where I really get surprised. In my country, a university can kick you out if you don't turn in your thesis in 2 years after you did your last exam. When this happens to you, you need to start again. So, this little son, who is at least 23 at this point, didn't do anything for the last 2 years. Me, if he somehow is finished by Friday morning, we can do it express until 1 p.m. Entitled mother, no, you will do it for him. This is what you are here for. No, we only do the printing of the finished file. We won't write it because it is nearly impossible to do it in 2 days. So, my son will be kicked out because of you. This is where I got impatient because I have stuff to do. So, I said, no, he will be kicked out because he is lazy or stupid or even both. She mumbled something about rude service and stormed off. My coworker just shakes his head in disbelief. We saw parents picking up a thesis and complaining that the finished product is not what they wanted, but what the kid needed because of guidelines. We had parents complaining about the price, although they agreed on a few hours early. But we never had a mother seriously asking about ghosts writing a whole thesis for her kid. Most of us didn't even have a college degree. Story 4. Movies have been my obsession since I was 7 years old. That's when my dad showed me Star Wars for the first time, and I was completely blown away. The spaceships, the lightsabers, the epic battle between good and evil, it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. From that moment on, I was hooked. I started making little stop-motion videos with my action figures and my mom's old digital camera. By the time I was 12, I'd saved up enough money from mowing lawns to buy my own camera. Nothing fancy, just a basic Canon that could shoot decent video. But it was mine, and I treasured it. Now I'm 15, and I've made about a dozen short films with my friends. Nothing professional, of course, but we've gotten pretty good at adding basic special effects and even doing some simple stunts. We post everything on YouTube, and our little channel has almost 500 subscribers. Not exactly Hollywood, but it feels amazing knowing people actually watch our stuff. This summer, my friend texted me with an idea for our most ambitious project yet, a sci-fi thriller about a robot gone rogue. We spent 2 weeks writing the script, planning shots, and putting together costumes from thrift store finds and stuff we had lying around. It was going to be awesome. We decided to film at Oak Ridge Park because it had some open fields for our action sequences, plus some wooded areas that could pass for a secret government facility with the right camera angles. The first day of shooting went perfectly. We got through almost half of our shot list, and a few people even stopped to watch us film. One older couple even volunteered to hold our reflector board for a few scenes. Then came day 2. We arrived early to set up our green screen. The plan was to film the climactic battle scene where the robot played by my friend, wearing a costume made of spray-painted cardboard and dryer vents, confronts the team of heroes. We were going to use stock footage of explosions and warfare as the background to make it look epic. I was adjusting the camera on its tripod when I heard someone behind me. I called out to my friends, telling them we should try to get the shot in one take since the battery was running low. That's when I heard her. A woman asked what we were doing in a suspicious tone. My friend, who was half dressed in the robot costume, turned around and politely explained that we were making a movie. The woman complained that we were scaring her kids and asked us to go somewhere else. I glanced over and saw 2 little boys, maybe 5 and 7, standing behind her. They didn't look scared, if anything. They seemed interested in our robot costume. But I didn't want trouble, so I agreed that we could move to the other side of the field. We packed up our green screen and props and relocated about 50 yards away. It took almost 20 minutes to set everything up again. My friend was on a small platform we'd built, ready to jump onto a gym mat while pretending to be shot by our heroes. I called for quiet on the set and gave the action cue. My friend started his lines about being superior and impossible to defeat when suddenly our green screen toppled over. I spun around and saw the same woman shoving our equipment. She yelled that she had told us to leave. The green screen knocked into the platform where my friend was standing, and he fell off. Thankfully, he landed on the mat, but he could have easily missed it and gotten hurt. I shouted at her, asking what she was doing. She angrily clarified that when she told us to go somewhere else, she meant for us to leave entirely. I tried to reason with her, explaining that this was one of the only places we could shoot scenes like this, and that we weren't bothering her or her kids since we had moved away as she asked. She stammered for a moment before yelling that we needed to respect our elders and calling us jerks. Then she lunged forward, grabbed my camera right off the tripod, and threw it onto the concrete path a few feet away. The sound of plastic cracking made my stomach drop. She smugly declared that this was what we deserved. My friend who played the robot scientist was shocked, asking if she had really just broken my camera and questioning if she was crazy. The woman defended herself, saying that movies were corrupting children's minds anyway, and claiming she was doing us a favor. By this point, my other friends had pulled out their phones. One was recording everything, and another was calling the police. This friend announced that he had captured the whole incident on video, and that the police were on their way. The woman's face went from angry red to pale in seconds. She protested that we couldn't call the police on her because she was just protecting her children. I sarcastically asked what she was protecting them from: a teenager in a cardboard robot costume. I walked over to my camera. The casing was cracked, and the lens was completely shattered. This was the camera I'd saved up for years to buy. All our footage was on the memory card inside. The woman tried to justify her actions by claiming we shouldn't be making violent movies about robots killing people, calling it inappropriate. My friend pointed out her hypocrisy, wondering how she even knew what our movie was about, and asking if she had been spying on us the previous day. The woman grabbed her kid's hands and started backing away, saying this was ridiculous and that she was leaving. My friend told her the police were already on their way and she wasn't going anywhere. About 10 minutes later, a police car pulled up. 2 officers got out and asked what happened. My friends and I explained the situation, and several bystanders who had witnessed the incident backed up our story. The woman kept insisting we were endangering children with our violent propaganda. One officer asked her directly if she had damaged our property. The woman deflected, saying we shouldn't have been filming there since it was a public park. The officer repeated his question, specifically asking if she had thrown and broken my camera. She tried to justify her actions again by claiming we were scaring her children. The officer observed that her children didn't look scared at all. In fact, they had been asking to look at the robot costume the whole time. It was true. While their mother was having a meltdown, her kids had been chatting with my robot costume wearing friend, asking how he made the helmet light up. The officer turned to me and asked how much the camera was worth. I told him it cost about $600 and that I had saved up for 2 years to buy it. The woman immediately accused me of lying, insisting it couldn't be worth that much. The officer asked her to lower her voice. He explained that based on the statements from multiple witnesses and the video evidence, he was placing her under arrest for criminal damage to property. The woman's face went through about 5 different emotions in 3 seconds. She expressed disbelief, dismissing us as just kids playing pretend. The officer pointed out that we were kids with expensive equipment that she had deliberately destroyed, then asked her to turn around and place her hands behind her back. As the officer handcuffed her, she started crying, saying she was a single mother and couldn't afford to replace the camera. The second officer arranged for her sister to come pick up her children. The woman was taken away in the police car, still yelling about how movies were corrupting society. After they left, my friends and I sat in the grass, looking at my broken camera. One friend asked about the footage. I carefully opened the damaged camera and removed the memory card. It seemed intact. I suggested we go back to my place to check if we could save it. 2 weeks later, we received a court summons. The woman had been charged with criminal damage to property. Her lawyer reached out to my parents, offering to pay for a new camera if we dropped the charges. After some discussion, we agreed, but only if she also had to write a formal apology and perform community service. In the end, I got a new camera, actually a better one than I had before, and we were able to recover most of our footage. We finished our movie about the killer robot 3 weeks behind schedule, but it turned out to be our best work yet. We even included a dedication at the end. To all the people who tried to stop us from making this film, thanks for the motivation. Our YouTube channel gained another 200 subscribers after we posted the behind-the-scenes story of what happened. The irony: our movie about a robot gone rogue ended up being less dramatic than what happened in real life. Story 5. Now, mind you, in no way do I dress like I work anywhere when I'm off the clock. I'm typically in jeans or shorts, and one of my graphic tees, sci-fi or pagan-related, nerdy witch, but nothing offensive, in boots. Now, I'm also clumsy and can trip over a flat surface. This comes up in the story. Also, sorry for the length. So, my husband and I went to a local Asian market in our city a few months ago. We wanted to stock up for the second lockdown we figured was coming from the upcoming flu season, and COVID cases have been going up in the area again. We typically enjoy a more East Asian diet than your typical American. Not weeaboos or anything, just found it a healthier diet, more flavorful, and I might love rice way too much. Anyway, this market is a seafood market, a large one, and smells like it. Again, this comes up. And they have a lot of stuff you'd not typically find in a smaller international store. We are used to being the only white folk there a majority of the time, but the staff is amazing and super friendly. So hubby and I walk into the market, grab a cart, and we head off to get our supply of rice, noodles, real instant ramen. Not that plastic stuff marketed in American grocery stores, and juices. Hubby was looking over the various rice bag, deciding how big we wanted to go for the stocking up, and I told him I'd go to the ramen section and start looking over what they have this month. Stock doesn't stay the same necessarily, and you can find real good ramen sometimes. Anyway, looking over the selection, I grab a ramen that's in a bowl. Great idea if you want less cleanup after a 10-hour shift of doing tech support. And I knock about half a dozen other packages down. Like I said, clumsy. I kneel down to collect the various items on the floor to put back, and stand up to ensure the next person doesn't repeat what I did. And then she shows up. Karen? Hair, clothes, shoes, purse, jewelry, sunglasses, and overly offensive perfume. There has to be a class on this. They take on how to get the uniform right. So, cast is as follows. Me, racist Karen husband, my husband, market employee, store manager, cop 1 and cop 2. As she walks up to me, I see her out of the corner of my eye. She grabs me by the arm with her plastic claws and tries to spin me, but being a larger guy, I don't move easily. Karen, excuse me, but I need help, and you're the only American I see working here. Removing my arm from her grip, I say, Ma'am, I do not work here. I'm just looking over the ramen selection. And I don't know who you are, but do not put your hands on me if you want to keep them. Mind you, I do not react well to being treated as a punching bag under the best of times. I am so done with people attitude most days, and I have a deep seething dislike of entitled people. I worked in food service and retail for several years, as well as a janitor. Those jobs really show you who people are. Karen, of course you do. I saw you stocking the shelf. And don't you dare threaten me, I'll have your job. Ma'am, I knocked these over and was putting them back, like a decent human being. And you touched me first. That's assault. And why do you foul witches always want someone's job for you being a stupid, short-sighted brat? Voice now shrieking in typical Karen fashion, she screams, How dare you? Where's your manager? I'll have you fired. Again, you dumb witch, I do not work here, so you can't have my non-existent job. Now, at this stage, my husband turns into the aisle behind her, and he has that look on his face of, I pity whomever set him off. Husband, hey hun, you all right? Me. Yeah, just dealing with a wild feral Karen. She turns to hubby. Mind your business, you slur. Now, another man turns into the aisle next to hubby, and by the look on his face, it's her husband, and he's already slumping his shoulders in defeat. Apparently, this is a regular thing for the poor guy, and I also hear someone coming up behind me. I turn, and it's an employee I'm acquainted with. She's wonderfully funny, and always has a smile on her face, and has a slight accent. Employee, is everything all right? I heard yelling. Karen, yes, you racist slur for Asians asterisk. This worker refused to help me, assaulted me, and threatened my life. Seriously, there has to be a class at Karen U for lying on your feet. Screw you, you lady. How dare you use that word? And if I wanted to hurt you, you'd already be on the floor. Her husband still has a defeated look. Karen, must you? Again? Why do you have to do this? Me, again. Employee, ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Not until you fire this brat. Husband steps in between me and Karen, and uses that firm, soft tone of his that can make my blood run cold. Now look here, you dumb, entitled, inbred mistake. My partner does not work here. He then stepped a little closer to her, and I could easily guess the look on his face, because Karen looked like she'd seen a ghost. Now, leave us alone, or I'll really give you something to worry about. Again with the Karen U training, she slaps my husband. Employee runs off, I'm guessing to get her boss. Hubby didn't flinch or anything, his military training. I pull my husband back as Karen's husband grabs his wife. That's enough. I told you before to not ever put your hands on other people. Me. Seriously, how many times has she done that? I'm not really surprised by this when I think back. Typical entitled Karen behavior in all honesty. Employee is back with store manager behind her. The store manager, from my understanding, she's part of the owner's family and is second or third generation American. Store manager: what in the world is going on here? Me: well, dumb Karen here thought I was an employee, assaulted me and my husband, all while using a racial slur against this employee. Karen, for her part, is so red and enraged that she actually can't speak. I'd never realized that was a function of a Karen. I thought they always had words for any situation. Her husband: I'm so sorry for this. She is off her meds. My husband: obviously, she also needs a higher dosage. We'll just leave. Store manager: no, you will not. Not if she physically assaulted 2 customers, as well as used hate speech against an employee. Karen finds her voice: all you racial slur for Asians are all the same. Useless. No wonder this place smells so foul. You people can't even clean properly. Turns to me and hubby: and you two are worse. Now, Karen has gotten out of her husband's hold, pulled out her phone, and does the most Karen thing you can think of. She calls the police and lies about an assault on her. Store manager: fine, let's play your game. Turns to the employee: please go meet the officers at the door and bring them here. Employee leaves and comes back about 5 minutes later with 2 officers in tow. Not surprising they're fast in responding. There's usually a patrol car in the lot clocking speeders going down the street. Now, the officers don't even get a word in at all as Karen goes into white woman. Karen fake crying about how she was assaulted by me, by my husband, and the racial slur against Asians. The officers don't look too happy, but also unbothered by the show. I admit, this surprised me. Cop 1: Karen, again. Her husband: yeah, sorry. Hubby and I look at each other in surprise. Me: officer, she physically assaulted myself, my husband, and used hate speech against the store manager and this employee. Also, what do you mean again? Cop 2: she's a known problem child. My husband says, again with a firm and soft tone, and why is she allowed to run free like a feral jackal? Karen tries to speak, but Cop 1 puts up his hand and silences her. Doesn't work. She goes on about how she's the victim in all this. Typical. Cop 1: would you like to press charges? Me: my husband and the store manager say, yes. Karen's husband takes her call phone and purse just as Cop 2 gives her some beautiful new silver bracelets, and she loses what she has left of what sanity she had and tries to use the back of her head to hit the officer in the face. Cop 2 backs away out of reaction as Cop 1 pulls out his taser and puts her down. Karen's husband puts her phone in her purse, hands it to Cop 1, pulls out his phone, and looks down at Karen as Cop 2 is getting her up. That's it, I'm done. I'm calling our lawyer for a divorce. I can't deal with this anymore. I'm unsure what language Karen was trying to speak as she got back on her feet, and Cop 1 and 2 escorted her out. Her husband followed, looking embarrassed as can be, and finally having his shoulders squared and confident. Store manager apologized and asked if she could give us a discount on our groceries, and we declined. We honestly were more worried about the store manager and employee being verbally assaulted instead of what we'd had said and done to us. We're those kind of people. They both said they were fine. An employee walked with us for a few minutes, and we chatted while the store manager went to speak with the cops. Now, fast forward to our recent court date. The store manager and the employee decided to drop the hate speech charges, but Karen is banned for life from their store, as well as about a dozen others. Apparently, the community doesn't want her around causing trouble. Karen pleaded guilty, but isn't serving jail time. She has to go to court-ordered anger management therapy and is on parole for the next 4 years. The judge apparently wasn't having any of her fake tears. She saw through it all, and I was living for it. Karen was told that if she misses just one appointment for anger management and/or therapy, or her parole officer reports she isn't taking her meds, her parole will be jail time. We were also rewarded damages that Karen had to pay, or again, jail time. Her husband was there, and seemed years younger since we'd seen him. They're divorced, he has the kids, and Karen has to have supervised visitations. He apologized to us for Karen, saying he was just embarrassed about it all, but happy with how it turned out. He had a wicked smile when he said she deserved every bit of what she got.